Hey, wait. Mind if I bend your ear about something?
Anevia is outside your door, leaning casually against shelf.
So, here's the first, and most important thing. Beth gave you a crucial mission, I get that, and I know you'll get the job done, I saw you in action. But here's the rub, by sending you out on an errand, we're weakening our defenses here. If they come at us while you're gone, I dunno if we'll be able to fight 'em off. Your guess is as good as mine. It might not be here, they could attack the whole damn city. Those vermin know they've lost the upper hand and that we're going to push back hard. If things kick off here, you should know, after they attack, some things could be changed beyond recognition. So if you've got any business that needs taking care of, you'd better do it soon. So, the rift that damned beetle left with its scythe? Yeah, well it cut the city into two, and it's kinda difficult to get across. My scouts tell me there's a halfway decent place to set up a crossing in Market Square, not that any of them tried it to make sure. But if you've got a mind to go across, and I think you're gonna have to eventually, you might wanna give the square a once-over. Later. Watch yourself out there.
Irabeth rubs her red and tired eyes.
Any success? How is the city? They are our greatest treasure, the shield given to us by Iomede herself, and placed in Kenabers and other Mendavian cities and fortresses by her herald. The chain of wardstones forms a protective barrier that stops the expansion of the world wound and keeps the demons from moving beyond its borders. I shudder to think what will happen if that barrier falls. You heard what that demon said. They're going to desecrate the wardstone and blow up the whole barrier around the world wound. That would be an even worse disaster than the world wound's expansion before the Second Crusade. Not only Kenabers, but every city with a wardstone will be destroyed, including the capital. We can't allow that, no matter what. We will retake it, even destroy it if we must. Iomeda's gift must not become a weapon of the abyss. It was a small order, created to fight not only demons but also the enemy within. To maintain the purity of the paladin ranks, prevent heresy, and identify spies. And it failed miserably at that. The Templars of the Ivory Labyrinth infiltrated it and formed their nest within its ranks.
Pledging their lives to Baphomet, these cultists schemed to subvert the good works of the Crusaders. They caused trouble in Crusader camps, instigating fights and egging participants on to greater violence. They spread lies and sow the seeds of fear with voices sweetened by magic. Some have even assumed the roles of holy crusaders and risen in the ranks of other knightly orders, waiting for the moment when their treachery can be used to achieve a most foul end.
After the Queen entrusted me with leading the order, Anevia, and I practically built it from scratch. We got rid of dead weight, people who weren't committed. We organized ways to transmit messages and orders safely. We introduced reliable ciphers. We found tacit allies around the city, from crusader orders to street beggars. This was my personal crusade, to purge the city of the Templars who had infested it. And I thought I was winning. I could feel it, we were so close to driving the cultists out of Kenabers. But...
Irabeth frowns.
It's hard to admit, but those successes didn't count for much once the demons entered the city.
Irabeth lowers her head.
We did all we could, but it wasn't enough. The cultists were everywhere from the start. And the demons just razed everything to the ground, despite our efforts. Go. May Iomede keep you safe.
Of course you didn't actually take on the task of escorting me back to the surface and nobody promised you a reward for rescuing me, but I wouldn't have made it to the Defender's Heart alone, without your help, and I always pay my debts. Oh, and by the way. Horgus looks at you with unvarnished disapproval, his arms folded across his chest, his foot tapping impatiently. I have a job that would be perfect for someone like you. Naturally, I'll pay generously for your services. For an adventurer ready to sell their soul for booze, and then lie down drunk in the gutter. Or do you think you're somehow different? A traveling knight, perhaps, noble of heart but without a coin to your name. Horgus sizes you up critically, then sighs and shrugs. You seem a reliable enough ally to me, and you did get me out of those mongrel caves? So why should I care what you do with my money once you've got it? Horgus seems like one of those people who think the entire world owes them something. However, you hear notes of hysteria beneath his smug arrogance. It's as though he's really quite nervous but taking great pains to conceal it. Horgus puts his hands on his hips. Oh really? How impudent. No one dares tell Horgus Worm how to address the rabble. You shall be my bodyguard. You see, I have good reason to return to my mansion here in Kenabers. I still have, well, it doesn't matter, it's none of your business. My mansion is a breathtaking building with a large garden in the wealthy part of the city. Even before the demons attacked, every thief and fraudster in the city had tried to get inside, one way or another. I shudder to imagine the state it's in now. I have little hope that my guards were able to hold the mansion during the attack, and I expect that the servants fled when they saw the demons. Only Abadar knows what's happened there since. Therefore, I would ask that you meet me at my mansion and guard me there until I complete my business. WotR, the god of cities, law, merchants, and wealth, also called the god of walls and ditches in the Eastern Dragon Empires, is known to be a patient deity. Maintaining a strong neutral stance in his actions, he strives to expand civilization and order among the peoples of Golarion. I already asked the local paladins for help, but they've no desire to set foot outside this tavern. Damn cowards and traitors, that's what they are. Also, please, do take Camellia with you. I trust that girl more than the rest of your gang. She is of noble birth, after all. 1,000 gold coins. Horgus replies without hesitation. Marvelous. Most excellent. Horgus's face relaxes, smoothing a few of the tense lines. I'll proceed to my mansion at once and wait for you there. Meanwhile, you needn't worry, I know the city like the back of my hand. But do hurry, unless you want me to lower your reward. Camellia looks you over pensively, toying with the snake-shaped bone amulet that dangles from her pale neck. Noticing your glance, she flashes you a cold, barely there smile.
Greetings.
It seems for a moment that she wants to say something else, but the pause grows too long, and she slips back into cautious silence. She blushes slightly and lowers her eyes.
So you've noticed? To be honest, I find it embarrassing. You see, being a shaman means having spirits of battle as my ever-present companions. In the heat of combat, they become rather, vocal. You want to know more about me than you already do? Why?
Camellia arches a dainty brow.
I talk to the spirits of this tormented land, and they guide me in battle. I'll help you fight the demons, and I swear that you can rely on me in this matter. Isn't that sufficient? I had good teachers. Although they don't get all the credit. I am a most diligent student.
Camellia licks her parched lips.
Ah, my little trinket. It's so nice of you to notice. But I assure you, this amulet is nothing but a bauble. Can a lady not be drawn to beautiful, useless things? Anyway, as much as I enjoy our delightful conversations, the spirits are calling me, and I must respond. Please excuse me.
Camellia turns away, watching you out of the corner of her eye. A strange figure towers over the bar. A huge, ungainly man with skin so milky white that his blue veins are visible even from a distance. His bald head is equal parts lumpy and pitted, and blood-filled eyes stare impassively out at you from beneath his pale brows. The glass in the albino's large, clumsy hands looks dangerously delicate, as if one twitch of those calloused fingers would be enough to crush it. A gold medallion engraved with a tankard gleams around his neck. What'll it be? The albino slowly takes your measure with his red eyes, and finally with a gentle sigh, says, Gemil Hawks. Vampire. Gemil gives you a long look of reproach, and then grudgingly answers, No. The albino looks around. There are demons everywhere. And you showed up. Gemil gives you a long, mournful look and says nothing. If you mean places that normal people usually stay well away from, then there are plenty. Like the Petusian wine cellar. Gemil pauses for effect, like the name of the place alone should make you quiver in fear. It once belonged to a Petusian trading house. Then King Irovati came to power in Pitux, and properties started changing hands. Soon after, the seller's shop assistant was found in a ditch, not all of him, mind, just his head. Numerian gangsters had taken possession of the place. They wanted to sell something stronger than wine on the street, and they ended up on the gallows. Then King Irovati's number was up. so now the store stands empty and unclaimed. People say that a headless ghost wanders the place at night, moaning ghoulishly, "Oh." After coming to the end of this story, unusually long by his standards, the tavern keeper takes a swig from his tankard. Just don't ask me how he makes any noise with no head. I wasn't there. I just tell it like I heard it. I'm a tavern keeper. Best in the city. The best there's ever been. And I pray to the best God there is. How did anyone end up here? How did you? Or them? With a huge hand, the tavern keeper gestures at the ragtag group assembled in the room. The world is big, but still there isn't a place for everyone. People who no longer have a life anywhere else, they end up here.
Aside.
A grizzled dwarf turns a blade in his calloused hands, carefully inspecting its edge. When he sees you approaching, he sets the blade aside and greets you with a nod. A new face in the city. You picked a good time to come to Kenabers. As you can see, we're in sore need of warriors. Wherever I am, that's where my forge is. A true master of any craft will always find the tools they need. I miss my old forge, of course, it's now just a pile of charred stone and metal. But I've still got my hands, and that means I can work. Well, not everyone, but I make it my business to know the people who might need my services. A blacksmith's work isn't just at the anvil, you know. We've never had any of your kind here before. You've got an odd look about you. I can honestly say I've never seen the like of it before in my life. Do I recognize it? Of course I do. I made this with my own hands. There's my brand, see? The dwarf carefully takes the sword in his hands, gazing at it like a doting father. Oh, Yanil, things have been tough without you. But at least we've still got your sword. That's something. Joran returns the sword to you. In battle, ordinary swords get blunted, they break. But sometimes, a weapon can preserve. I don't even know how to explain it, I'm no authority on these things, but something like, an echo of the deeds done with that weapon. Or more like, the reflection of the wilder soul? I don't know. I will say one thing, take care of that sword. Yanil may no longer be with us, but the demons will still remember why they need to turn tail and run when they see radiance. Och, the scabbard's all worn, we can't be having a fine sword like this being carried around in this tatty thing. I'll make you a new one, if you like. If the city stands strong and we both survive, come see me again and I'll have it ready. No charge. The magnificent and glittering golem, encrusted with gems and covered in intricate, flowery embossing, triumphantly exclaims, "Happy to be of service. May Shellen brighten and vivify your day." Shellen, also known as Eternal Rose, the Eternal Maiden, and the Incorruptible, is the goddess of art, beauty, love, and music, and the half-sister of Zonkuthan. Shellen focuses just as much attention on inner beauty as outer beauty. In her role as goddess of beauty, Shellen also promotes the creation of art and the composition and performance of music. Clerics of Shellen frequently are artists themselves. As the goddess of love, Shellen encourages the proliferation of that feeling in all its forms. She is not the goddess of sexuality, lust, or fertility, and draws a very clear distinction between love and sexuality, although she does not in any way discourage erotic love. The few paladins who worship her practice courtly love. I am a prestidigitator painter golem. Many millennia ago, I was built by Islanti clerics of Shellen, the goddess of beauty, to make the world a better place. In my joyful service, I have visited many lands, and for the past few centuries, I have resided at the Temple of the Sunrise Chrysanthemums in Tianxia. But then the good clerics saw fit to offer me as a gift to the Mendevian Crusaders so that you could share in the beauty I can create. I was in the Tower of Estrad Museum, but then some not beautiful people came and started smashing everything. I asked them to show restraint, and that's when they decided to steal me. After all, I am beautiful and very valuable. They dragged me down the street, but I didn't want to go with them, so I kept stopping. The least beautiful of my kidnappers threw me over his shoulder and tried to run away with me, but I am very heavy, so his back made a very not beautiful crunching sound. He started yelling, and then everyone else started yelling, and some of that yelling was directed at me, and then they started hitting me with their not beautiful weapons. And then some good crusaders drove them away and brought me here. And now I've been lumbered with you, waste of good metal, you are. And instead of working, I'm supposed to keep an eye on you so no one is tempted by the walking treasure trove. My creators granted me the ability to place illusions on various items. I can change their color and texture to make them more beautiful and appealing to the eye. Would you like me to cast an illusion over your armor to make it green? Green is a very pleasant color, and it would match your eyes. I was not designed for any type of combat. Yet I can bring beauty and harmony to any type of combat. Happy to be of service.
Make way!
The dwarf resembles an abandoned citadel, one whose high, crumbling walls are still holding fast, but whose empty, lightless windows make it clear that all inside is dead. Oh, it's you. Good work back there, in the Grey Garrison. Name Staunton V. Hayne. If you've heard rumors about me. His face, which looks like it has never known anything as carefree as a smile, grimaces. Just so you know, everything people say about me, it's true. They say I'm a traitor, as bad as Aurelius Forlesh. That I'm a disgrace, even among the ranks of the condemned. That Queen Gaffrey should never have spared me. That I belong on the gallows. The condemned is a military unit made up of petty criminals conscripted as disposable soldiers and front-line fodder in the Mendevian Crusades. Few names arouse as much rage among crusaders as that of Aurelius Forlesh, the Sarkorian witch who initiated the opening of the world wound, and later its expansion. Almost nothing is known about her life before the atrocity, except that Forlesh was condemned for using arcane magic, which was persecuted in Sarkoris, and imprisoned in the Tower of Threshold near the city of Is. This is where Aurelius Forlesh conducted the ritual that paved the way for the demonic invasion and left her land to be tormented by the demon lord Descari. By some mysterious means, the witch transformed herself, changing from an ordinary human into a half-demon. Over the following century, crusaders encountered Aurelius Forlesh or the results of her experiments a few times, but they learned nothing more of Descari's henchwoman. She holds a high position in the ranks of the Army of the Abyss, and bears the title of Architect of the World Wound. I couldn't have survived this long if I were completely alone. Joran, my little brother, he keeps me going. He's never abandoned me. Everyone else shies away from me like they might catch what I've got. Even fighters in the condemned console themselves by thinking, I got stripped of my rank, but at least I'm not Staunton. Commander Tirabade seems to be the only person in the whole army who remembers that I'm a soldier and not a drudge. She has no qualms about taking me into battle. She's had some mud flung at her in the past, or so I hear, that's why she tries to keep an open mind about people. It's no surprise that she's the only one to hold on to her sense of reason in this farce. You really don't know. Staunton gives you a long, morose look, then sighs. I'm the reason why the Crusade forces are holed up in fortresses on the edge of the world wound, instead of bringing the fight to the demons. We used to have a foothold in the wound, the mighty, unassailable city of Drazen. We used to have it, until it fell, and all because of my stupidity. I gave the enemy our main citadel. I was tried. They wanted to execute me, and rightly so, but the Queen intervened. She said that I should live and fight in order to undo what I had done. So that's how I live, decade after decade, fighting in the condemned. The dwarf shrugs. As you can see, I have fixed nothing, and I have earned no one's forgiveness. Are you going to spit in my face too? It wouldn't surprise me. Do you think you're the first to come to me with sermons? The dwarf shrugs indifferently. The storyteller? Staunton strokes his beard in thought. A strange old fellow, that one. He used to sit with me for hours, asking about all sorts of things. He never offered judgment or comfort, he just listened. At first, I wanted him and his questions as far away from me as possible, but later I realized that talking to him did ease my burden a little. I hope he is alive and well. He's completely blind, and feeble too, so if he's alone in the city, well, you probably know what that means. I do know one place he might be. Look for him in the Blackwing. It's a library, here, I'll show you where it is on the map. I don't know what use a library is to a blind elf, but he loved the place. He would sit there day and night. What do you mean, how? The knight glares at you from beneath his furrowed brows. If you don't trust the word of a condemned, go ask somebody else. Like my little brother, Joran. And if you still don't believe it, what's it to me? But if you're about to ask me to recount the story of my disgrace for the 1000th time, don't. That's not up to me to decide. My life is in the Queen's hands. He falls silent for a moment, and then in a trembling voice, he adds. The condemned isn't the worst part. All these years I have prayed to Torag for forgiveness. Countless times I've gone to his priests, countless times I've kneeled before his altar. If only the father of dwarvenkind would answer my prayers just once, not to restore what I've lost, but just to tell me that I am still one of his children, but it seems he doesn't give a damn about me. What can I expect from mere mortals when my own God doesn't think I deserve redemption? Torag, also known as Father of Creation, is a stoic and serious dwarven god of the forge, protection, and strategy who values honor, planning, and well-made steel. He is an often distant deity, lending magical power to his clerics, but leaving his followers to make their own way through life, knowing that this will make them strong and determined. Go on then. Maybe we'll see each other again. A young man in well-worn traveling clothes and a simple wooden symbol of Erastil on his chest is efficiently cutting a linen robe into strips to use as bandages. Despite his visible exhaustion, he works with zeal, singing some tune about red braids and ripe sheaves of wheat under his breath. He raises his warm, chestnut-colored eyes to you. Are you one of the Crusaders? Thank you for defending those of us whose talents lie off the battlefield. I'm Jurna, servant of Erastil. Pleased to meet you. Erastil, also known as Old Deadeye and the Stag God, is one of the oldest human gods still worshipped in the Inner Sea region, and is concerned with family, farming, hunting, and trade. During the Age of Creation, Erastil was among the gods who battled Ravagug when he sought to destroy Golarion, and who were eventually able to contain him in the Dead Vault at the planet's core. His religion dates back to before the Age of Darkness, when small farming communities and hunter-gatherers prayed to him for bountiful harvests and successful hunts. Legends claim that it was Old Deadeye himself who crafted the first bow and gifted it to humans to overcome the challenges of the world. Even as the accomplishments of civilization mount, Erastil continues to embrace and represent the simpler pleasures life has to offer. No, I was just passing through Canavers. I was sailing down that old man of ours, the Great Selen River, to a village by the name of Chili Creek. I happened to land in the city on the eve of the festival, and I'm ashamed to say I decided to stay for a day to enjoy myself. But I ended up staying in the city longer than I'd bargained for. It's a small fishing village. It's not even marked on some maps. But people do live there. What they don't have is a priest. They have no one to heal their wounds, no one to offer prayers for a good catch, no one to give their dead a dignified burial. And the world wound is a stone's throw away, so, I'll be setting sail for Chili Creek, to serve my God and my people. Once we've held Canavers, I'll be going there. If by the grace of the good gods we all survive this, you should come and visit me sometime. You'll find the village here, on the bank of the river. The priest marks Chili Creek on your map. I only took my holy orders recently, so my God has only bestowed a little of his power upon me as yet. I'm sorry to say that the number of wounded fighters in this tavern is far beyond my power to heal. But there's a reason people say, have faith in the gods, but look to yourself first. I may not be able to help the wounded with magic, but I can at least cut up bandages. I won't lie, I am afraid, but what can I do? Those villagers are simple people. Every day of their short lives is spent doing hard, honest work. That's exactly the kind of life I want, something simple but meaningful. If I had centuries ahead of me, like elves do, I might have spared some 50 years or so to travel around the world. The young man says with a smile. Or maybe even 100, why not? But I don't have time to spare, so I want to spend my short life in the place where I'm needed most. Even if it's dangerous. Especially if it's dangerous. May Erastil watch over you. A tall, fragile-looking elf sits in front of you, eyes closed. He is pale as a ghost, his arm wrapped in a blood-stained bandage. You spot other bandages on his body under his clothes. But even in such a miserable state, he manages to keep calm. Raising his eyes to meet yours, he says faintly, "I am Forn Autumn Haze. At your service." His pale lips are reddened by blood, but you see no signs of pain or fear in his gray eyes. "My name is Forn Autumn Haze. I've come here from Kyonin because I am a hunter, and all minions of evil are my quarry. I won't say more than that, if you don't mind. We are strangers, and of different races and cultures. I'd rather not tell you more than is necessary." The homeland of the elven race on Golarion, Kyonin, was almost completely evacuated by the elves just before the fall of the Starstone. They only recently, by elven standards, returned to Golarion to reclaim their ancient homeland and have become an isolationist realm, allowing few non-elven visitors into their mist-shrouded capital, Yadara. After giving you a cold, intense look, he shakes his head. "Do not trouble yourself on my behalf. A local healer tended to me. Besides, I come from a resilient, hardy people. My body will endure both the wounds and the poison delivered through them. A sinner and accomplice to demons. The quarry I am hunting in this inhospitable place." After a brief pause, Forn says, "It would be impolite to refuse such a direct and friendly offer. I was hunting a fugitive, a Descotterite by the name of Kalesa. It pains me to admit that there are heinous malefactors such as her among my noble kind. I managed to catch up to her in Kenabers, and I wounded her. Then demons appeared and the city was engulfed in flames. I was injured in the battle that ensued and couldn't free her soul from its service to her dark masters." He expresses no anger or hatred as he speaks, only compassionate sorrow. His expression remains indifferent, but his voice is as cold as a mountain stream. "Many underestimate the wisdom and experience that my people acquire over the centuries. I do hope that my opponent will misjudge me as you have. I won't hold anything back. Not who I am, why I made my way here, or who it is that I'm pursuing. Other peoples tend to believe that identity is the sum of a person's actions and the events that happen to them. For them, I am one of a long line of warriors of Kyonin, who, since his youth, has dedicated himself to hunting evil and injustice. For them, I am a successful and capable huntsman who has tracked down and slain a great many monsters. But I am an elf, and for me, my identity has a different meaning. It is shaped by the place where I was born, and that I love so deeply. I am shaped by what I find beautiful and what makes my heart quicken. By the fears that come to me in the dead of night. By the things I find so intolerable that at the sight of them, my very core darkens and fills with poison. Thus, to tell you who I am, I would require many days and much candor. Which is more than you and I have at our disposal. Because I am the son of a noble and proud nation. We are sometimes criticized for our arrogance, but no one dares doubt our honor. When a crime is committed, we cannot turn a blind eye. If we were to abandon our obligation to oppose evil, if we were to surrender this obligation to other races, we would also relinquish our preeminence. As you wish. Good fortune to you.
I don't need anyone's sympathy. much longer, I wonder?
Half a century ago, our parents fled their homeland of Sarkoris, terrified of the invading demons. They were certain that the war would soon be over, so they didn't go too far and found their refuge here, in Canabers. They used what little savings they had to build a tavern where any crusader could get a bowl of soup and a good night's rest in exchange for some money and news about their recent victories. The city looked completely different back then. It was a triumphant city, full of hope, inspiring songs, and brave paladins in shining armor. We praised Our Lady Pulura openly and hoped that the lands of our ancestors would be ours again in no time. Things have changed since then, though. Our parents have left to the goddess halls. Drazen is long gone. The world wound grows deeper every day, and the crusaders seem to take more interest in fighting each other and us townsfolk than in eradicating demons. Hulrun has gone mad and now puts all his inquisitive zeal into burning witches. Today Canabers is a city of fear and suspicion. We even had to hide our altar of the Shimmering Maiden in the basement so they wouldn't accuse us of demon worship. Queen Gaffrey has recently appointed Hulrun the prelate of Canabers. Now nothing will stop this murderer from taking complete control of the city into his hands and serving his so-called justice on everyone. His previous acts of violence were just the beginning of a full-scale massacre. We have to flee, run like our parents did, this time not from demons, but from the crusaders. Soon we will sell our tavern and leave, anywhere away from the agony of this endless war. May Pulura protect the city from whatever comes next. 10th of Lamashan, 4682. Swargal family, of the Divime clan.
Hey, Chief! Hey, Dreamboat, come over here! I want to talk to you about something. Something really important.
Quit bothering the decent people in here, Woljif, or I'll knock your teeth out!
What's it to you, Delvin Dum-Dum? You were told to guard me, and I'm not stopping you. But no one told me I had to shut my trap. Woljif Jeffdo. I deal in useful things. I can get you whatever you want. Anything. But there's just one problem. Get me out of here and I'll tell you. And don't worry, it's not contagious. I'll lay it out for you. Simple job, 30 minutes tops. We go someplace, talk to someone, and in return, whatever you want, I'll get it for you. Some extra rations? No problem. Armor, weapons, scrolls, you name it. It's as good as yours. If you need my help with something, whistle and I'll be there. I'm handy enough with knives too, and even my magic know-how isn't too shabby.
What a load of guff! If you were good at magic, you wouldn't be stuck in here now, would you?
Don't you listen to him, Chief. He'd find fault with the Queen herself. I'll be useful to have in battle, and I'll sell whatever you want at a reasonable price. It's your lucky day. You won't meet another gem like me in Canabras. Does it really matter? Don't get hung up on the past, Chief. Don't look to the future. Live in the here and now.
He was caught thieving.
That's easy. You know Irabeth? Feisty-looking gal, always wears armor. You can't miss her. She's the meanest fighter in the whole city. When you see her, put in a good word for me, will ya? Tell her there's this guy Woljif locked up for no good reason in the Defender's Heart. Well, for the follies of his youth. And he really wants to get out on bail so he can keep up his good behavior and make a contribution to society. You got that? Will you do it? I knew I could count on you. Knew it the moment I laid eyes on you.
I prefer the company of me, myself, and I.
friendship's overrated anyway.
A tall, athletic man greets you. His hair is prematurely gray and shorn close to his head in a military style. He is lean and well groomed, and a monocle twinkles coldly in his eye. The bold set of his jaw and his large but agile frame attest that here is a man who is always ready to be on the move. Greetings. I am Hyler, Venture Captain of the Pathfinder Society. I'm the superior officer among Pathfinders in this region of Mendef. However, the Society is running almost no operations here right now. Besides me, there are almost no Pathfinders here. Actually, I'm only stuck here because of an old feud with a demon worshipper known as the Spinner of Nightmares. I've had to work alone, without the support of the Society. But I've made a lot of acquaintances among the local mercenaries and daring fighters. If you need any good fighters for an honest cause, talk to me. It all began with the task of the Pathfinder Society. I arrived in Nerosian with my team to investigate the sudden death of a famous crusader, Baron Falren. We soon focused in on a small hospital for the wealthy, where Falren was being treated shortly before his death. It turned out that a gang of Baphomet's cultists, calling themselves the Labyrinth of Mind, had gotten a foothold at the hospital. The Pathfinder Society is a globe-spanning organization based in Absalom. The membership consists primarily of Pathfinders, adventurers who travel throughout Golarion, usually inconspicuously, and explore, delve, and otherwise experience the lesser-seen parts of the world. They send journals documenting their travels back to their venture captains, who also assign them new missions and suggest new places to explore. The most exciting and illuminating of these journals are compiled in the Pathfinder Chronicles, an ongoing series of books that collect the history and mystery of Golarion for its membership and the general public. They were obsessed with twisting the minds of their victims, and targeted fragile people too weak to resist. The hospital was filled with perfect victims, isolated for weeks from the outside world, completely helpless, and when they returned, they were different. Almost normal. But the moment they heard a certain phrase, something dark awoke in their mind, and they transformed into servants of Baphomet, ready to lie, betray, and even kill. The Labyrinth of Mind was preparing to infiltrate all the elite circles in Mendef. But Baron Falren stopped them. He was too loyal to his oath, and too resistant to their spells. He fought for his freedom until the strain broke his heart. We opened and cleaned the city of Baphomet's pit of vipers. Their den was a cradle of sin and filth. They cast spells on each other, and their loathsome fantasies stepped real from their minds into the world. They dreamt of horrible and forbidden things, and they fought like mad. We burned the place to the ground, and slaughtered everyone we could. But the leaders of the cult were able to flee. And they were set upon revenge. They abducted my daughter Lowry, who served under my command in the Pathfinder Society. They left me a note full of tart insults, mockery, and sneers. From that note I learned the name of my enemy, the Spinner of Nightmares. A few months later, I confirmed that she was the leader of the Labyrinth of Mind. My hunt had begun. I would get Lowry back at any cost. Hyler grits his teeth with bulldog determination. What exactly are you interested in? I am a common Pathfinder. There are many others like me. Fate and my orders brought me to this land. The Pathfinder Society is a global organization that unites opportunists and adventurers of all kinds. We explore the world and uncover its secrets, travel, and sometimes face down threats. In times of trouble, the latter becomes our primary focus. We're driven by curiosity, and the desire to make the world a better place, and, of course, some seek profit or hunger for glory. But in any case, it's hard work. They might send you anywhere on a mission. Weaklings have little place in the society, it's more for seasoned fighters. There are society lodges in many cities. The closest one is in Nerosian. They're each led by venture captains, lads like me. The Grand Lodge is in Absalom, the center of the world, the Decemvirate sits there, the anonymous council of our leaders. I was working on an assignment for the Pathfinder Society. And then, a demon worshipper named the Spinner of Nightmares abducted my daughter Lowry. For the past 3 years, I've been trying to save her. During this time I've become a specialist in scouting demon territory. I've even planted agents among the cultists. Truth be told, in pursuing the Spinner of Nightmares I've been acting more on behalf of Queen Gaffrey than the Pathfinder Society. It's a long story, maybe I'll tell you the rest of it sometime. Hylar frowns grimly. This Spinner of Nightmares is a true spawn of the Abyss. I've fought her many times, but I've never been able to seize her by the throat. Hylar smiles, showing his healthy white teeth. As a girl, Lowry was just an angel. We lost her mother early on. She was left to follow my example, a drifter with little idea how to talk to a 10-year-old girl. But even with such questionable parenting, Lowry managed to grow into a wonderful girl. Brave, smart, beautiful, and entirely unbearable. She's always argued with me. About everything. When Lowry was 18 and told me she was going to be a Pathfinder, all I said was, all right. I knew there was no use to try and talk her out of it. And she was a fine Pathfinder. Hylar's fists clench with a painful sounding crack. I'll never forgive the Spinner of Nightmares for taking my girl from me. Good luck. Watch your back. Only trust your closest friends. The enemy is cunning and treacherous. Irabeth rubs her red and tired eyes.
Any success? How is the city?
Frowning a little, Irabeth nods.
Please. But I must warn you, there are some things I don't have the right to discuss.
A bitter smile appears on the half-orc's face.
I don't much like to remember it. Believe it or not, the story of how I became a paladin is also the story of how I failed to become a knight. My parents were crusaders, may their souls stand together in Iomeda's celestial army. When I was born, they retired from the war and started preparing me to continue their legacy. But my father was an orc. You'd be pressed to find a calmer, wiser, and more pious servant of the goddess than he. But still, all his life he was dogged by sideways looks and whispers. When I grew older and it was time for me to serve, I decided, anywhere but Kenabers. That was where my father had served loyally, and his only reward had been injustice. Besides, the witch hunters, led by the Honorable Prelate Hillrun, stalked the city with a heavy hand. Who knows what they'd have done to a strange girl with green skin. Instead I went to...
A smirk that looks more like a painful grimace crosses her face.
You can laugh if you want, but I was young and foolish. I chose Last Wall, of all places. You can imagine how well I was accepted in a country that's been battling the orcs of Belkzen since its foundation.
While orcs can be found throughout Golarion, nowhere else are they as plentiful or live in as densely populated settlements as in the hold of Belkzen. Belkzen is an unforgiving wasteland filled with shrub brush, steep mountains, and uneven badlands, where water is scarce and generally limited to the seasonal flood road.
There were many there like me, but we were all treated as second-class citizens. To the locals, my green skin was worse than leper scabs. Even my brothers in faith kept their distance. I took my vows, and the goddess granted me the powers of a paladin, but even then, not a single order would accept me into their ranks. I spent another 6 months knocking on doors before I realized a simple truth: I serve Iomede, not these people. I don't have to prostrate myself before them. So I left, as a paladin, but not a knight. I cannot even imagine what your life is like in that respect. I admit, you're the first of your kind I've ever seen, and I'm sure that's true for most people in this city. It's unlikely you'll be met with hatred, but with ignorance? Almost certainly. They tolerated it surprisingly well. I shouldn't have been so wary. Crusaders don't tend to be prejudiced, as a rule. After all, heroes from all over the world, even from other continents, come here to fight the demons. Apparently the people were only suspicious of full-blooded orcs. There were already many like me here, and we don't have any problems, though the locals do have their superstitions. Mendef is as merciless as Last Wall. They just have a different set of victims. I kept seeing those same sideways looks and scowls, hearing the familiar whispers. But where once they used to whisper behind my back and point at me, now they whisper in my ear and point at someone else. It's so strange, to be on the other side of humiliation. To wipe the spit from your face, and suddenly be invited to change position, and spit at someone else. You must have figured out by now that I'm talking about tieflings. It's true there are many of them among the cultists, and few among our crusaders, and our fighters do all they can to drive away those who would be our allies. People shun them, call them Aurelius spawn, or worse, as if they chose to be born like that. I believe it's quite a feat to rise against the call of one's blood and join the forces of good. Still, most only see them as the enemy. I once saw a knight bleeding to death because he wouldn't let a tiefling priest touch his wound. Alas, I haven't been able to change this in all my time in Canobers. I left Last Wall and went traveling. The goddess guided me, and my path led me to where atrocities were happening. I often fought in exchange for gold. But never for unworthy aims, of course. I wandered the river kingdoms for a few years, killing monsters and tracking down criminals. Sometimes I thought I was just wasting time, that my true place was in Canobers. But I pushed those thoughts away. I didn't even want to think about going back. But in the end, divine providence had brought me to my senses.
The river kingdoms have long been a haven for inland pirates, anarchists, exiles, and anyone who cannot seem to make it in more civilized nations. The kingdoms are by no means a unified nation, but rather a constantly shifting group of city-states and fiefdoms, each at war with the others both to gain more power and prevent their own demise. The river kingdoms are located in the marshy lowlands of the Selen River Basin, where its three branches combine in their journey south to the inner sea. There are few roads throughout the land, and the branching web of the Selen and its tributaries provide the primary means of transportation through and within the region.
It happened in Timon. I was tracking a gang of bandits, which my employer suspected was a cover for Rajmaran spies. I managed to find their lair, but inside I found something far more dangerous than spies, an unholy temple to Zonkuthon. When I broke in there, the cultists were about to sacrifice someone, the person who was destined to become my wife. Anevia. But that's another story.
The realm known as Rajmaran was once just another turbulent, violent river kingdom, the Archduchy of Melkat, where leadership changed as often as the years. This ended in 4661 when the land was conquered by Rajmir, a tyrant claiming to have ascended to godhood. The deity Zonkuthon, also known as the Midnight Lord, the Dark Prince, and the Prince of Pain, god of darkness, envy, loss, and pain, possesses one of the most twisted and evil minds in the great beyond. His position as god of pain is well earned, and he has been the root of countless tortures, murders, and worse throughout time. He was once a benevolent demigod named Dobril, but was corrupted when he traveled to the far, dark places between the plains and returned in his current form. His half-sister, Shelyn, still holds out hope that she can redeem him, though the Lord of Shadows shows no sign of remorse or compassion.
After I cut down the cultists, I examined their papers and couldn't believe my eyes. A network of evil cults had spread through all of Avistan, including Mendef. Worse, the documents clearly showed that their allies, the Templars of the Ivory Labyrinth, had infested my native Canobers, and were even among the ranks of the Paladins. After that, delaying my homecoming would be tantamount to desertion. Luckily, I was no longer alone. Anevia was as eager to destroy the cultists as I was. Anevia and I hurried to Canobers. We couldn't trust anyone. The papers indicated that the cultists had infiltrated everything. Luckily, I had some experience in investigation, and my beloved.
The half-orc smiles warmly.
She knew her way around working locks, tailing people, and trading information with the city's bottom feeders. Soon we'd defeated, alas, not the whole Hydra, but a few of its heads. Do you know who turned out to be the leader of the cultists? The commander of the Eagle Watch. Can you imagine? While Prelate Hillrun was chasing witches through the city, the enemy had infiltrated the very order responsible for internal security. The scandal reached the ears of the Queen. At first she planned to disband the order in disgrace, but then she offered its command to me, and put its salvation in my hands. Of course, there was one small catch: I wasn't a knight. But I was made commander just the same, skipping the usual progression through the ranks. They should. But Baphomet's minions are masters of deception. They manipulate Zonkuthon's butchers as eagerly as Iomeda's knights. The cultists from that unholy temple didn't know the true face of their associates in Canobers. We ourselves learned the truth much later, after getting to the bottom of their nest. We met in Timon as I was wandering aimlessly from one ordeal to another. We returned to Canobers together, to expose the Templars of the Ivory Labyrinth. The day the Queen knighted me was the second happiest day of my life. The first was the day of our wedding. But Anevia isn't just my beloved. She's my staunchest ally. We share every victory and defeat. The best of me is alive thanks to her. Thank you for saving her back then, the day Canobers fell. Before her return, the only thing giving me the strength to protect the Defender's heart was the hope that I'd see her again. We are in your debt. I was born in Canobers. I grew up on a farm just outside it. But my way back home lay at the end of a long and winding road. It took me years of traveling through foreign lands before I came to be where I've always belonged.
Irabeth shrugs scornfully.
Woljif is a petty thief from a gang of thieflings operating in Canobers. That's what we call them in these parts. They tried to rob a vendor of magical items recently. Unfortunately, we apprehended only one of them, and the rest managed to escape. We have nowhere else to keep him apart from the Defender's heart, but that's hardly a prison. Woljif knows it, too. He's been begging us for days to let him go free or have someone vouch for him. He's already asked you to put in a good word for him, hasn't he?
Irabeth squints at you thoughtfully, then shrugs.
If you want to recruit Woljif and put him to good use, go ahead and take him off our guards' hands. We can ill afford to let a soldier spend their days watching over a middling thief. I hope the tiefling proves useful, should you decide to take him along.
Lon greets you with a nod. Here for a chat? I've been waiting for you to come and see what strange beast you've taken into your party. Of course. What would you like to know? There were some skirmishes, and I've been forced to kill my kinfolk before too. Lon speaks in a steady voice. Fights most often break out over food. We have laws in the caves, written and unwritten rules that we follow. We respect one another's right to live. But hunger, it can push a person over the edge. I've never, you can count on that, stolen someone else's kill. But I can understand those of my kin who tried. To hear your kids begging for food and not be able to feed them is terrifying. He frowns and goes silent. Oh. Lon gives you a broad smile. His smile is strange, as if it falters where his human features meet his animal ones. Imagine that in the entire world there's only a few hundred like you. There's not an inch of fertile ground anywhere. Nowhere to grow grain for bread, or cotton, and linen for cloth. Your neighbors are beasts who want to eat you, or parasites who want to infect you with their larvae, and then eat you. And it's not that bad, because you can try to eat most of the things that are trying to eat you. Sometimes at the risk of getting poisoned, sometimes with almost no risk at all. In the worst years, there's not a single living thing anywhere to be found, predator or prey. That's when you eat mushroom soup. I'd say 3 times a day, but there was barely enough for once every 3 days. Lon shrugs. But life underground has its upsides, pun intended. There's no risk of losing the roof over your head. There's no bad weather, not counting the earthquakes, of course. Every mongrel settlement has a big gong, which we treat like a relic. The gong keeper hits it twice a day to mark the beginning and end. But this custom doesn't keep time very precisely. Every mongrel child has snuck up to the gong to strike it at the wrong time at least once, just out of pure mischief. Nothing could keep me away from it, not even the fact that I only have one ear, which means it would take double the punishment once I was caught. So, sometimes the wrong strikes get mixed in with the right ones, and the tribe can find itself jumping up to greet the morning in the middle of the night. Because all of Galarian calls us that. I don't see the point of all this hemming and hawing over what we're called. Anyone who finds it offensive, or takes issue with it, can lead the charge against the name, no one's stopping them. But personally, I'm not going to pick a fight over something as unimportant as a name. More like demon spawn, aren't we? Sad but true. Without the demons, there would be no mongrels. It's the magic of the world wound that affected our ancestors, and made their children the way we are. Like most in our tribe, Chief Soul fancies himself a descendant of the underground crusaders, the ones our heroic ancestors left to guard the caves. I don't know if it's true or not. That angel came to our caves for a reason. Maybe he remembered us. Those were evil and dangerous times after the First Crusade. Hundreds of crusaders began having children, and the babies were born with fangs and horns and warts that covered half their face. People didn't like the new look. The Inquisitors sure didn't. So our ancestors fled persecution and made a home for themselves down there, under the ground. They probably intended to find a cure for their children, and hoped to return in time, but it never happened. Instead, the Worldbound's terrible legacy was passed down from generation to generation. Mongrel parents can only guess what their child will look like. Each of us is born with a new mutation. Many mutations are fatal. Lon stops, then goes on quietly. Down in the caves, we usually don't congratulate the family for the birth of a child, until they turn at least 3. Most don't even get a name before that. There's no point. Our lives are much shorter than most uplanders. Up here, only a few generations passed, and many still live who remember old Sarkoris as it stood untouched by the demons. Queen Gaffery, for example. But where we live, mongrels start getting old much earlier than humans, much faster, and with more devastating consequences. Few live past 40. And fewer still live long enough to die of old age. Hunger, disease, and monsters from the deep are more effective killers than time. So for us, the story of the First Crusade is a legend that happened generations ago. There are no living witnesses. We have a tale of the wise and great ancestors who left us to stand guard in the catacombs. But in reality I suspect they were desperate wretches who couldn't figure out how to dispel the demonic plague and who were abandoned by their own kind. It's nice to know my ramblings seem useful to somebody. Let me guess, your first question is, can you wear a hat with your one horn? Am I right? Lon chuckles. I'm as old as I look, no surprises there. But, remember Sol? He's 10 years older than me. I remember him back when he was a fearless warrior, and day by day I watched him turn into an old man. Him and my father. It happens very quickly. First you miss a shot because you don't see the target as clearly as you used to. You think it's because your eyes are tired. You tell yourself it'll get better tomorrow. Then you notice you're having trouble breathing, that climbing is harder than before. Lon clenches and unclenches his human fist. Your fingers stop bending. You have to tie your sword to your hand. You can't even put on your greaves without help. When you're washing your face in a stream, sometimes you catch sight of a gray-haired, wrinkled old man you don't recognize. And this goes on, until one day, you come across a cave beast and you realize you can't outrun it. Lon takes a breath. My dad kept diaries, marking all the signs. And I saw it too, the last year. I had to help him get out of bed, help him dress, remind him to eat. Sometimes he forgot my name. I told him that we should have stayed on the surface, and he joked that dodging a goddess was behavior unworthy of a crusader. He meant Pharasma. Every morning, I wake up and check how I feel, but there are no signs yet. Even so, I know I don't have much time. I need to do something useful before I forget why I came here. Are you sure? Lon sighs. All right. My connection to Wenduig. I mean, where do I start? Lon turns the unexpressive, reptile half of his face to you. We grew up together, trained together. She was the chief's daughter. She was groomed to be the best all her life, and then I came along. We were rivals, but we dragged each other out of tight spots, too. I've always been drawn to grand, heroic gestures, sometimes idiotic ones, whereas Wendu liked to roam unexplored passages, finding new caves and making maps. She wanted to be a great huntress, the one who'd make it through the shield maze. But instead she... Lon shakes his head. It'd be better if she'd died. The death of a friend is painful, but watching a friend become a shadow of their former self is unbearable. Of course. She thinks she did everything right. Because the second she starts to doubt herself, she'll have to face the truth. To admit that she's just a cannibal that demons use as they wish. Lon's frown looks almost like a wince. She wants to get stronger and stronger, but for what? I'll never understand what drives her. Wow, you really don't pull your punches, do you? Lon exhales loudly. There was a time when I asked myself the same question. Wenduig knew me better than anyone. She understood me better than anyone. She was my first woman. But we never loved each other. Maybe I could have grown to love her, but it always seemed like she never understood what love was. Maybe she just wasn't capable of those kinds of feelings. If you ever want to reopen any more of my old wounds, you know where to find me. Funnily enough, common isn't all that common underground. Lon says. But your observation is correct. I used to live on the surface with my parents for a while, and had a chance to learn a couple things, the language, and the fact that every peasant who sees my scaly mug screams, "Demon," and runs away. I don't know if you're interested, but my mom wasn't from an underground tribe. She was a smuggler, the kind that used the dungeons of Canavers to secretly move and store goods. One time, two gangs couldn't agree on how to share a prime cut, got into a fight, and the winners threw the losers down a hole, dead and living alike. My dad went to check if the corpses had anything useful on them, and he found a girl from the surface, barely clinging to life. An incredible feeling sparked between them. Or maybe the girl just liked men with scales and a cat nose, that might be it. One way or another, he got her back on her feet, and he later even left his home caves. She left her smuggling behind and they began an honest life together. That's the delightful story of how old Lon came into this world. The next chapter, however, my family and I never stayed in one place for long. We lived sometimes on the surface, sometimes underground. We couldn't find a place to call home. Living in the caves was hard on my mom, and my dad's appearance raised too many questions in Mendef. They're at war against the demons, after all. In the end, my parents decided to stop making each other miserable, and separated. My father and I returned to our tribe. I think the peasants screaming, "Demon," had something to do with it. Or maybe Dad just couldn't stand life without rat tail soup. I wouldn't rule out the possibility. No, that wasn't it. I just don't have much patience for certain types of creatures. Demons, I mean. If they want to destroy Canavers, I'll be on the side of the people they're attacking. Lon looks away. Lon doesn't seem bothered by the threat. He shrugs. It's not a secret or anything. Just some private emotions and things that don't matter to anyone besides me. But if you want to listen, be my guest. My birth, hell take me, turned out to be a great misfortune for my parents, all because I'm relatively healthy. I'm the best thing that can come from a marriage between a cave-dwelling mongrel and anyone from the surface. A healthy child with the right number of hands and feet, no apparent defects, no missing organs or other problems. They saw hope in me, so risked having more children. They thought it would somehow be alright. Growl edges into Lon's voice. I could have had 4 brothers. The first was born 2 years after me, and died 3 years later. He didn't have a nose. Nothing even remotely resembling one. He could only breathe through his mouth. Mom and Dad were afraid to take their eyes off him, for fear he'd choke and suffocate on something. But in the end it was his weak heart that killed him. Then there was another pregnancy. And birth. I pretended I was sleeping, but snuck out of my bedroom and listened under the door. All those hours. It was very strange, but I never heard the newborn screaming. Mom moaning, yes. The priests praying. Then I dared to open the door a little and looked inside. The priests stood there, very pale. One of them was holding something, a small object that fit in his palm. He asked, "Do you know what this is?" And the other said, "I think it's a head." Lon stops. That was the point. You asked me what made me follow you to the surface. I'll tell you. Lon pauses, exhales, and continues in a steadier voice. It turned out that this time Mom was expecting triplets. The first of the babies was born in pieces, and the 2 others didn't live long enough to draw their first breath. About 3 weeks later, my father took me to the caves. He didn't want to leave, I could see it in his face, but I think my mom and he decided it together. The curse my people have carried since the first crusade stood between them. Not to mention the 4 dead babies. And old age was rapidly taking its toll on my father. After we returned to the cave, he only lived another 4 years. So if you're asking me why I decided to go up with you to the surface and join the Crusaders, well, the answer is, I've always wanted to. I was afraid to leave my tribe, but it always haunted me that I'd die in a world where 4 crusades could do nothing to stop the beasts from the abyss, and the number of victims kept growing. I want to change that. Or at least try to. And if changing things is too much to ask, then at least get a little revenge. The ones who are behind the world wound owe me a great debt. The lives of 4 brothers, all my mother's tears, my father's broken heart. It's a lot. It's so much that killing a couple of demons won't do it for me. I want to do something real, and am ready to pay any price. Call it my personal crusade, if you like. Lon gives you a slanted grin. I used to think that things would be better if I'd never been born. But now I think I was born for this. To settle the score. I couldn't just abandon my tribe. I'm their best hunter. They'll have it much harder without me. But now that the demons have nearly destroyed Canavers, and the caves almost collapsed on our heads, sitting and waiting it out just wasn't an option anymore. Anyway, I'm more useful up here than I am down there. Plus, the chief let me go, which means my debt to the tribe has been paid. And break my beloved's heart when I die in her arms 5 years later? That's a fine thing to do to the person you love. Then again, there's a chance I'll inspire some tragic bard to write a tearful ballad. Thanks for listening. Sure thing. To invent a new salad and have it named after me. Lon remarks grimly. Then he sighs. Truth be told, I don't know. It would be much easier if all I really wanted was to kill demons, then a few more demons, then more demons after that. Good honest rage and no needless brooding. I think I actually envy the warriors who can live like that. But I can't. If life's taught me anything, it's that there are no easy choices. Dying a glorious death isn't enough. Some heroes of the Crusades did that and also saved entire settlements, erected the ward stones. Their actions kept the lands of Mendaf safe for decades. That's what I want. For my dumb, short life to have meant something. You think I have an exaggerated opinion of myself? Some scaly freak crawls out of the caves and wants to take control of the ward stones and flaunt Iomeda's banner. Any fool can charge at the front lines of the demonic armies and die there. But what good will that do? I want something meaningful, you know. Even if I have to pay the highest price. Especially if I have to pay it. There are plenty of worthier people who need to survive this war and tell everyone else what nutcases we were.
Well, Chief, what do you got for me? Ah, you must be a smooth talker. Come on, Delvin, get these bracelets of yours off me. I'm going free.
You're sure to regret this. This tiefling will fleece you for everything you've got. Mark my words.
You're a bitter little man, Delvin. Petty and mean. You can't even be happy for me, can ya? I pity you. I'll leave you alone with your sad little soul. So long. And now, Chief, straight down to business. You see, I'm one of those guys that people around here call thieflings. We just call ourselves the family. After we knocked over that shop and I got stuck here in the Defender's Heart, a little bird told me that Big Sister Charisme wanted to see me. That she had some questions to ask me. You following? Now, she won't be asking me questions like, Woljif, how'd you manage to get out of this one? Or, Woljif, you're so thin, didn't they feed you? No, something serious has gone down, and I just know they want to try to pin something on me. I can feel it in my tail. So I knew right away that I couldn't go alone. You turned up just in time, Chief. You don't need to do anything when we get there. Just stand behind me and look mean, and I'll handle the rest. Somehow. Let's go, I'll show you the way.
Woljif gives you a friendly wave. Hey, Chief. Wanna talk? How much is more? Ladies and gentlemen. Roll up, roll up. No dark magic, no fraud. A trick without any deception. Woljif snaps his fingers and blue flame engulfs him. The shadow that was previously lying calmly at his feet grows, floating in the air behind him. It is the shadow of a huge horned, winged demon with claws. Tada. It doesn't do anything, it just looks scary. I remember when I was little, an old beggar showed me and my friends how to make shadow puppets. You put your fingers together in front of a light, and it makes the shadow of a deer or a dog or a dove on the wall. I tried so hard, I wanted to make the best shadow, and I did. It just happened. Woljif chuckles sadly. Funnily enough, that's the last time I had any real friends. They tried to stone me later, screaming at me, calling me a demon. A tiefling is always a demon to these wimps. Even the lowest ranking drunken gnome thinks he's better than me, just because he hasn't got horns or a tail. The poorest beggar in the filthiest gutter thinks he's better than me. Most people would never show their shadow again after that first time, but I don't care. If stones start flying again, I'll just run, I'm used to it by now. Oh well, and there I was thinking I'd impress you. Woljif sighs, his tail drops, and the shadow and blue fire disappear. Thanks for not dragging me in front of the paladins at least. They already know me, I've been brought to them before. I remember the paladins all standing around and looking inside me for traces of evil. They couldn't find any, so they let me go. Woljif's tail whips back and forth nervously, raising clouds of dust. Why, are you an inquisitor or something? What's it to you? If I've wronged you somehow, just come out and say it, don't ask me trick questions. I know how it happens. I used to know a fella, he was married to the sister of a guard. Some shady types got him drunk one night and started asking him suspicious questions about the gods, about the queen. So he wakes up hungover, with a headache, someone's mumbling something, it smells like smoke, and his feet are kinda hot. He looks down, and there's a fire under him, and the prelate is reading out his sentence. My family, it's an interesting story, actually, but I don't tell it to just anyone. My father and mother had a bakery, their life was great but the gods never blessed them with any children. One day my mother went to the river to wash some clothes and saw a basket floating downstream. Inside the basket was a baby, adorable and chubby and fast asleep, it was yours truly. In my hand was a note spritzed with expensive perfume that said, "Take care of my little angel." My mother brought me home and she and my father realized right away that I was heaven sent. They raised me as their own. When I turned 15, my mother showed me my baby blanket, it was embroidered with the coat of arms of an unknown kingdom, all in gold thread. Ever since then, I've been looking for my real parents, but it's not easy, traveling takes money. So if you have a few gold coins, I'll pay you back as soon as I find my real family. I give you my word. Woljif whistles and jingles the coins in his palm. Thanks a lot, Chief. May Iomadi, or whoever you worship, save you, otherwise you'll be done for, you believe anything you hear. If I was really a prince, I wouldn't be sitting around here, I can tell you that much. I'd have already gone to take what was rightfully mine. And then I'd come back with an army, so I could watch the guards and merchants who pushed me around all my life bow and scrape before me. But that's not gonna happen. Wanna hear the real story? The true story is boring, my family is human, both my father and my mother. They used to live in a village nearby, I forget the name. When my ma had me, my old man got so mad, he almost killed her. Pinned her to the wall and started asking questions, like why his son had horns and a tail. Well, my ma told him that her mother, my grandma, used to fool around with a demon. When he heard this, Daddy Dearest got drunk, trashed the house, and then took off. I don't remember any of this, of course, my grandma told me. I was about 3 years old when my mother brought me to Cannabers and left me with my grandma. She said to her, "You and your demon have ruined my life, now you handle him." Then she left. I haven't seen her or my dad since. She did leave a blanket though, that part was true. But my grandma burned it because it was infested with lice. It wasn't even good enough to use as a rag. You think after all that, my grandmother saw the light, felt rightly ashamed, and kissed my horns? I wish. Woljif grins nastily, his yellow eyes flashing. People used to give her trouble for fooling around with a demon. She wasn't welcome anywhere, so she got angry. Normal kids get bedtime stories, see, but the only tales I got told were how my dad was worthless, my ma was a slut, and I was demon spawn that no one cared about. She only kept me so I could help around the house and steal things she needed. So that's the truth. Alright. I won't tell you everything, mind, but I can tell you a little. The Thieflings are Mendevian thieves. The gang was started in Mendev's capital by someone or other, and soon after they'd spread all over Galarian. They're also called the family. You know why? Because us Tieflings are easy to spot. Wherever we go, guards always hassle us, asking, "Are you lost or summit, hornhead?" We usually say we're visiting family. And if they say, "Oh yeah? Who?" you give them the name of a local Thiefling, who confirms everything, even if he's never seen you before in his life. That's why we're all brothers and sisters. There are rules, who does what, who gets what cut. I won't say it's a lot, but they make it worth your while. They'll even heal you if you take an arrow. But the biggest no-no is this: you don't steal from the family. If you don't contribute to the shared pot, you'll get the cold shoulder, you won't be treated like family no more. And then everyone'll hear that you went to visit some relatives who have a farm someplace. My best guess? The farm is in some underground well beneath Cannabers where they breed grave worms. Heh, if Sister Charisme, our boss, looked the other way more often, I'd really be able to spread my wings. Woljif laughs. Now there's an idea. Nice try, Chief, but I'm no killer, never have been, and assassins are expensive. You know they bumped up the prices last year? I asked a friend of mine why he charged so much, and he says to me, "I've learned to see the true value of my work. I read in a book that whatever you think you're worth, that's what you'll earn." Can you believe it? I didn't even know the mug could read. So, I can't just have Charisme taken care of, it's too much trouble, and no one will like it. People respect her, mean as she is. It used to be such a hole, then the Crusaders and refugees came here, and things started looking up. Although it depends who you ask, I suppose, which is better steer clear of here, because Iomeda's followers are ferocious. Especially Hulrun Shapik, the local inquisitor, he's a tough old goat. I didn't see it myself, but a serving girl at the tavern told me that her second cousin's son from his third wife is a paladin, and he said that Hulrun takes an unsheathed sword with him even to the privy, and when he sleeps, he puts it on the pillow next to him, and when he's in his cups, he strokes the blade and whispers sweetly to it, "You are my one true friend, you are the only one I can rely on." Irabeth has given us a hard time too, you as much as look at some nice little bauble, and before you can think of taking it, before your fingers even twitch, she's coming for you, with her nostrils flaring and her fangs glinting. Scary woman. But even she's better than Sister Charisme, our boss here in Cannabers. By our I mean the Thiefling's boss. If you get caught by Irabeth, it's all out in the open, you go to prison or you end up as worm food. But if you step on Charisme's toes, poof. You're gone. Just like that. No one ever sees you again. All you'll hear is, "He went to the family farm," even though he's never had a family or a farm. Woljif grins happily. I already was a tiefling, and life made me a thief. I've been in this business since I was a kid. My grandma used to say, "If you don't work, you don't eat," and she gave me as an apprentice to Ijer, a tiefling neighbor of ours. He was a cunning old geezer, he knew how to take a purse off somebody's belt, how to cut open bags undetected, even do some magic. I used to climb through basement windows and open doors from the inside while I was still small enough. And when I grew and stopped fitting through the windows, I decided I was done with my education. I repaid my grandma for everything she'd done for me, which was absolutely nothing. Why would I feed her if she wasn't bringing me any money? If you don't work, you don't eat. So I took off. I got bored of my teacher too, but when I as much as hinted at leaving, he said I owed him for my education. So I just nodded, and then I joined the Owlbears, the gang that ran our district, and told them that Idger was working their territory. I don't know what happened to him, but I stayed with the owlbears. Then their leader started giving me the cold shoulder. I did steal from him, but never that much. So I had to rat them out to the guards. Then I joined the Golden Hands. That was a good time, rich pickings. I would have stayed with the Golden Hands, but the Northmen promised me a bigger cut if I told them where the Golden Hands kept their loot. I'm no fool, of course, so I told them. After that I only had one option, to join the Northmen. And then the family came. At first, no one took them seriously, calling them thieflings and all that, but I felt it right away. They had power behind them, and they had more money. I'm always on the winner's side, chief, that's why I joined the thieflings. And right on time, some thugs came from the capital and made the Northmen leave. The ones who survived are in the family now too. Woljev shrugs. Whatever, you're free to do as you please. Yep. Where he goes, I go. That's how we've always done it, even before the world wound. I forge the armor, he goes into battle and breaks it, he brings it back to me, and I repair it and make it better than before. Everything's changed since then, of course. But that part has stayed the same. I've told this story so many times already, well, telling it one more time won't kill me. The blacksmith sighs. Drazen was built after the First Crusade, back when it seemed like victory was ours for the taking, and that the demon invasion would soon be at an end. The population of Old Sarkoris was thoroughly diminished, and many of them hoped to see their hard fighting repaid with a small plot of unclaimed land. Drazen was a fortress built on all our hopes, and on Mendaf's ambitions, though you're not supposed to say that out loud. What a city it was, Oxifog Meteor Stalker, you can't even imagine. It was built by the finest engineers from the Five Kings Mountains. Queen Gaffrey spared no expense. Drazen was meant to be the capital of the Crusade movement, a monument to its glory and a beacon of hope for all Golarion. Heroes were drawn there to seek fame and glory, and they came from all over, Taldir, Garand, Tiensiat, I couldn't list them all. A relic known as the Sword of Valor was kept there, the banner that had been carried into battle by Iomade herself, back when she was still human. That banner protected the city and kept the demons from teleporting inside its walls. As long as the banner was in its place, Drazen was invincible, or so we thought. The greatest Crusader relic. the Sword of Valor, is a banner once carried to battle by Iomade herself. It is both a symbol and a powerful artifact which emits an aura that blocks demon powers. However, the banner only works this way in righteous hands. Hidden from the eyes of believers, it loses its properties. But then the world wound suddenly expanded. The demons launched a new onslaught and folks started saying it was time to declare the Second Crusade. Drazen was unassailable, until one young officer was tempted by a beautiful woman. She convinced him that the banner shouldn't be hanging in the city, that its rightful place was on the battlefield. She whispered honeyed words about glory and valor, and convinced him that he could be a hero as great as Iomade herself, and the poor fool believed her. He rounded up some of his hot-headed friends and carried the banner outside the city gates on an unauthorized foray. The demons slaughtered them within seconds, but for some reason the courageous ringleader was spared. A whole army teleported into Drazen. It was a bloodbath. Joran solemnly shakes his head. As you can guess, that officer was called Staunton Vihane. And the woman turned out to be a demon. Not just any demon, it was Minago, that foul wretch. She's given us a lot of grief here in Canavers too. Just don't ask me what I was doing while my brother was off having trysts with that beast, and why I didn't save him from his own stupidity. The blacksmith gestures as if to ward off the inevitable reprobation. Who could have guessed it would end like this? I failed my brother, that's the truth. I blame myself every day, looking at his plight, so that's the story.
I'll split you in half!
Cover me, all right?
I'll cut you wide open!
Move aside!